Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome back to the PCS for the summer split. My name's Asterix. I'm joined by Clement. Remember, sponsored by CDBC Bank. I'm telling you to remember, so I remember as well. Also want to thank Riot Games, Carry Live, and Garena for the league operation and full production. Mr. Chu, it has been a red-hot minute since I last cast with you. How have you been in what has been like, 3, 4 weeks? No, wait, 2 weeks since last been together?
It always feels like forever when we don't cast together, Hysterics. You don't need to mention it. I've been waiting for this week to finally roll by, and here we are, week 5, where all the teams are starting to clinch their playoff berths.
True, we're getting close to, locking in. I mean, we might even get to that point today as well, right? You and I were having a quick discussion about 8 now being the magic number if it comes down to Doish team losing today. But we can talk a little bit about how we're looking in the PCS right now, Clement. Second last week, as you already alluded to, we're still in 12-13, and it feels like we're getting that same old vibe we got in spring with our top 3, top 4 hitting their bubble again.
Yeah, now, small correction here. It is going to be the first week that PCS goes into 12.13, so we will see how teams kind of adapt to the meta right here. We've seen big changes with Gwen. We've seen big changes with Sivir. Those are the two that, come right off the bat here. And I think they will change some of the priorities for these teams. I actually feel like DCG are in a much stronger position right now because they've been playing a lot of Gnar, and it seems like a rundown comp is exactly what Sivir would fit into.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big pick to talk about as well. And thanks for the correction as well, because coming off the back of LPL, been in 12-13 for a while, and I remember last week it was, I think it was also Friday where I came in, and still running in 12-12. That means that today we get to discuss it a little bit in depth of what we're likely to see. But, Clement, I feel like with 12-13, you and I also were talking about this too, there's only small adaptations. There's not a big whirlwind. There's just more power picks to kind of consider.
Absolutely. 12.14 is kind of the big tempo patch that everyone is waiting for. But there are a couple things on 12.13 that I think people will definitely notice right off the bat. First one, the top lane, Gwen, has received a huge amount of changes. The basic gist of it is that she is a little bit weaker in the early game, but she hits like a truck later on. So the basic idea here is they wanted to balance her out for pro play and for casual play as well. They made her a little bit more consistent, and what it basically means is that I don't think she's tier 1, always blind pickable right now in the patch. Instead, you're going to see a lot more Gnar and gameplay filling that role.
Oh, God, it's so annoying to watch those ultis come through. We'll talk about the teams a little bit, though. As I was saying before, there's a lot riding on today, because with Doish team, if they pick up a loss here, anyone who gets to 8 wins is going to be locking in playoffs. And today, Clement, J-Team already in that position. Beyond, Frank, they can both hit 8 today as well. So we might have a couple more greened out teams by the time today's done.
Absolutely here. And we do have to mention that today J-Team is not going to be participating with us due to the COVID situation around here. So it's very possible that J-Team might make playoffs today without even being on the Rift.
Could you imagine sitting at home and you're feeling a little bit sick, but you're feeling also happy because without lifting a finger, as you said, the qualification chance is there. At the moment, I was saying this start of broadcast, Clement, that bubble's still there. But the fun thing this split is like Frank Esports are more situated within it. Whereas last split, we're talking a lot about CDBC, PSG Talon, J-Team, and then down a little bit with DCG and the Beyond Gaming. But Frank have kind of slotted themselves in this split in that big popularity contest.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the league go from kind of a top 14 that we saw last split, moving over slowly into a top 5 and sort of bottom 5 team. Well, not exactly bottom 5, but definitely top 5 coming in there with Beyond Gaming, I think slightly beyond.
Well, let's look at our player of the week, though. For week number 4, it was Leaky, DCG's top laner, who just had the best game on Mordekaiser. Absolutely slap it in the face, and it was, it was against impunity there, Clement. I believe PSG as well. Leaky absolutely took off.
Yeah, and he's a big reason why DCG are so strong this split. If you look at his champion pools, he pretty much is a blind pick tank player, but what makes him so special is that Mordekaiser pick. I love the way he builds his champion. I love the situation he picks him in. He's typically going up against tanks, and he's always going for the Demonic Embrace build second. He's not trying to split push, he's not going for the Rylines, and he's not going for the Nashor's Tooth. He's basically just going for the Demonic Embrace into the Randuins. So very tanky build. And one thing I think he does really good against in terms of the champion selection is he typically takes it against solo carry teams. So you see a lot of teams that are kind of first pick Aphelios in this meta. You have Leaky on that Mordekaiser. He walks into the middle of your comp. He puts Aphelios inside of Death Realm, and suddenly you don't have your hyper carry. So it's really a great champion pick when you see these teams running double tanks like the Poppy and Gragas in the front line. A lot of times teams are running double supports at times, and you just slap in that Mordekaiser, you take away their carry, and their composition falls apart.
He's 3-0 on it as well, so far that's kind of coming up as a sly pick that no one really expected. A shout out to Leaky as well. Diversity in the champion pool so far in the PCS. And as you said, for DCG, relying on this top laner has really become a good thing, with 28% of his team's damage share topping the charts for DCG as well. Pretty hyped up to see this guy yet again today as we look at what's happening today. As we said before, J-Team are not participating, so we only get 4 games today, Mr. Chu. But dude, today looks so good. First and last match, they are top of the standings matchups.
Oh boy, all the matches today are so fun to look at. You have Frank versus CFO to kick things off, very close in the standings. Then you have Impunity and Duish team duking it out for a playoff slot. And then Sem9 and Deep Cross Gaming. I think these two teams actually had the hardest games to predict because you had Deep Cross Gaming losing the Duish team, and then you had Sem9 and Deep Cross Gaming both almost beating PSG. So the ceilings and floors of these teams are massive. And then you have Megabank Beyond Gaming, which to now has been one of the only 2 teams to take down PSG. So a lot of variables and a lot of playoff standings riding on today's games.
And even though they kind of got slaughtered by CDBC Flying Oyster, like Beyond are still a very surprising team. So I like that we're looking at that matchup there again for PSG, trying to get some revenge after the loss in week number 1. But we start off with Frank Esports and CDBC Flying Oyster. And Clement, the reason I think this is one of the best matches of today, not only because Frank is doing so well, but because their individuality, the strength coming out through lanes in the early game you were talking to me about is so good. And we know that CDBC Flying Oyster have pretty strong laners themselves.
I have to say that I'm looking forward to this matchup, but it's also one I view with dread for Frank Esports. Because Frank Esports so far, they're 100% win rate when they're ahead at 14 minutes, and they're 0% win rate when behind. They're going up against the best early game team in the PCS. CTBC, you talk about good laners. I actually think CTBC has even better laners than Frank Esports. So I think what we're going to see is Frank Esports, they have to win through their composition rather than their raw talent, as they have done so many times before.
Okay, well, composition-wise, at the very least, we get to start talking about 12-13, as we alluded to before. For this first matchup, we do get the debut of 12-13 in the PCS. Now, Clement, you already mentioned things like Gwen. I want to go through some of the rest of these picks that these lineups can utilize, because 12-13 is still a patch that's bringing in new picks like the Silas priority, right? Talia as a top-tier pick. Poppy as well has been rising ever so greatly. Renata's still top tier. There's a lot here that Frank Esports, it's already fallen into their wheelhouse, especially things like the Silas on Pretender, right?
Exactly. I think this patch for me is still going towards kind of the more late game situations here. You have champions that I think do play better in the more defensive standings. We saw the rise of Poppy, we saw the rise of Xin Zhao, and in top lane you have Gnar and GP, both of which are champions that are not fighters, they're not rushers. I would say that try to dive into your composition. So I think Frank Esports, they can play around M&M. They're pretty much in a very good, comfortable place, just playing their usual compositions. The problem is, can they actually outlane CTBC? That is going to be hard.
Oh, Clement, mission rest. Like, you look at these two players and you say, well, in spring, we're calling them best solo laners. Yeah. Gemini has been on a jungle tear as well, top 2 at the moment easily. I feel like CTBC Flying Oyster, as you just said, outlaning this team is just a difficult mission in of its own.
And no pun intended right there. This team has the best first blood rate. They have the most consistent first dragon, first herald, and also first tower. So all of these stats that are regarding early game stats, they have in the bag, especially with Shun on the roster. Shun is still averaging the best stats out of any player in terms of just laning. He's on average 1,300 gold ahead at 15 minutes. He's still rocking a 13 KDA. it's very difficult to see a lane winning, even with the caliber of YSKM and with Frank Esports overall. Very difficult to see them actually coming out ahead early versus CFO.
But I know you're dreading this. At the very least, like, the champion pool creates some of that diversity in the top lane. YSKM has been spamming this Jax, and when we know, like, at the moment with Arrest in the top lane, his most played being Nah, we've seen Jax take the grass matchup. I was watching Bin last night, absolutely popping off with it. Even though we're favoring Rest, like, look at the solo kills for YSKM. Clement, 13 solo kills. This is Mini the Shy for sure.
This is absolutely terrifying, and I think a lot of it will come down to the matchups in the top lane, but we have to remember, this time CFO does have the red side, and that just means YSKM likely has to walk blind into a matchup right here. Rest can have the second pick. We'll see how the dynamics really change here. I will say, though, one thing I do give in YSKM's favor is that Rest has never really been known as a sort of pocket picker. He doesn't show you a lot of surprises. He's just really good on the champions in the meta.
And look, I mean, picks like Nah, we talked about GP as well. We'll have to keep track of the top lane, but Clement, you hit the nail on the head. The blue side for Frank Esports, when YSKM has been such a carry, one that Hollow has also liked to focus, and it means that for CFO, they can have the opportunity to set Rest up for a bit of success. Let's start pick and ban because 12-13 now debuts here in the PCS, and already Seraphine, Ari being taken away. Okay, pretty standard stuff. Bottom lane as a duo taken out by Frank Esports, putting a bit of priority to put Shun and Koala on a back foot.
So I will say on 12.13, the priority for Zeri has actually dropped down a bit because you can counter it with the Sivir. You can take the Uni with the Sivir, fits very nicely as well. So there's a lot of counter potential here. And CFO actually have a lot on the board open. A couple of their biggest champions, the Azir coming in for Mission, is still left on the table. That's usually almost must-ban territory. So I think for Frank Esports, they might need to consider. I don't think the Aphelios blind pick is as strong as in previous patches. Ooh.
It's not, but hey, look, you know what it is. Silas has been looked at as a first pick, Clement. Things like Talia are up there as well. As for Frank Esports, Pretender's last game was just insane on this pick. It was up against J-Team. It was a surprising win, and Pretender took over.
Yes, he did. He just ran everyone down. I like that Frank Esports are having some drafts that actually fit the way they actually play, which is lane dominance and then snowball. So last time we saw them versus J-Team, they picked the Silas, and then they went with the Rakan. Chase down composition was really fun, really fast-paced. Not something that they usually play, but it was super successful. And now we're seeing CFO actually going on the defensive side here a little bit more. If the Silas comes into the mid lane, you don't really expect the Talia to be able to roam all that much. She will face a lot of trouble. There's a lot of game potential there. But CFO, we have seen generally, have been willing to play this sort of slower, more controlled, kind of late game style, just with the Zeris and the Aphelioses and the Azirs and stuff like that. So CFO, for me, they're already going for a more defensive stat, but something that they're comfortable with still.
But you know that Frank Esports is the complete opposite. As you're saying, control for CFO. Frank Esports are like, no, there's not even a top laner picked, and YSK is like, just get me Fiora, even against the Poppy, that can be stopped. I mean, YSK just bringing that energy again.
Oh, blind Fiora, what a treat we're gonna get here. I have my issues versus blind Fiora, but I will say this. Like, whatever matchup she goes into, it typically is a skill matchup. There isn't like a super hard matchup, especially like with Renekton out of the meta. I don't think you can say that blind Fiora is completely unviable. She typically doesn't have the best of times against something like a Jax, but the Gnar is interesting here because I don't think Gnar is a great matchup versus Fiora. Fiora is very mobile. She can chase you down. She can riposte you. But okay, Rest says, fine, bring it on.
Well, Clement, a lot of people aren't willing to do this because Silas, remember you and I were talking in rehearsal. Big reason it's come up, like the Gnar is such a good takeaway. You have Mega Gnar without needing the Mega Gnar bar. So kind of a big hit with the Frank Esports first Silas pick as we start going through the other bands. So for CFO, how do you want to see this rounded out? Because already we do have a lot of great team fights set up. for
So
them so
I
far.
think for Frank Esports, they're probably looking at this and going, okay, so the solo lanes are not that strong overall. All Frank needs to do is ban away the aggressive bottom laners. They've already taken away the Kalista. I like this trend going for the Lucian as well. If I'm Frank Esports, I just want to play my top side. Both of these lanes, if snowballed, will give me a great 1-3-1 base. They're great scaling champions. So I just don't want to play around bot. I want to take away all the champions that could potentially blow up bot side for CFO and give them a huge lead. That's my general idea.
Which has been kind of a new trend for Frank Esports. We looked at them as kind of a one-track team in spring, all about M&M and K2, now named Kiris. But the diversity now in Frank Esports, that's why we're getting hyped for them, is it's bottom lane galore ban here with the Zipper going too. I'm kind of wondering what Shun's got left to play. Like, okay, Aphelios is there, Clement, Jinx is too, and he'll get his pick of the litter.
Yeah, I think CFO are definitely going to go with a hyper carry here. We have seen Shun mainly just go for the Aphelios. You compare him to Atlan. He's the Aphelios guy, while Atlan is the Ezreal and Senna guy. So going for the Aphelios like usual. He typically goes for this or the Jinx. But this is super interesting for Frank Esports. I don't really like the Samira idea here. I think if you already drafted the Sylas and the Fiora, you just want to play with your top side. Like, don't bother about bot lane. Just get something safe here.
Okay. Oh, it's an AD. It's not support. Good. It's an AD. Clement, is that safe enough for you? I mean, Tom Kench at least adds a layer.
I think it is. This is basically pure utility bot lane. It's a hawk shot going up just to make sure that Fiora stays safe. And then you have the Tom Kench, which I think is one of the best scaling champions right here because he can actually act as almost like a tank and take some gold resources here as well. So
he's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. Oh. Dude, what a draft. This is why this matchup was good. I mean, the players set it up, but the draft just dunked it down. Clement, run me through what this does now, because you talked about CFO staying back a little bit. There is also a lot of proactivity, even in the early game, for this red side draft.
Yeah, so the Bard is a bit of a Koala special right here, and he typically uses it in situations where he just wants to burst down your lane. He can temper fate the tower and then go all in on the people underneath it. There's no risk at diving a tower if the tower doesn't fight back. So we've seen this being run here by Koala a couple times. The basic idea here is tower diving. You have so many good tower diving tools right here. You have the Talia that can just wall off an entire lane from the back. You have Poppy coming in, knocking someone into the wall, and then the tower doesn't do anything. So that's the general idea here. But I do want to say that I think CFO, I don't think they have the scaling edge in this composition. I feel like Sylas and Fiora just pack so much power over their counterparts that CFO actually need to execute a couple of tower dives. And these are going to be some high risk, high reward situations.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, the Fiora was blind picked here. Rest decided to take the Nara in. And as you're saying, dive ability for CFO, great. But if there's no scaling edge, then I'm just ready for this early to mid game to be bloodthirsty. Talia Weaver's Wall. We got Sylas to match here with Clement, by the way. A lot of good ultis. He can also steal the Tempered Fate. So you've got a lot of tools that Frank Esports can use to respond. And with Frank being so much better in summer, even though CDBC right now looking like our strongest team with a 5-win streak, I wouldn't count Frank Esports out. They're a team that have brought the blood in the early game, and as Mr. Chu said, it is really all or nothing for a team that, for me, represents the historic IG, especially with YSKM, who was on IG young back in the day.
Exactly. This is your trident team in the PCS. They try to win all 3 lanes at the same time. Sometimes to their own detriment, but I love this draft.
Not looking. Not looking. We're going to get another lunge as well, at least starting out the laning phase. Well, here is Pretender gets over the wall with Absconder. Duck, Vital, the flash, YSKM runs into turret, but it's a summoner for nothing. And Rest already going to have a fun time this game.
That was so greedy from Rest. He actually hanged around into the top side and just thought that, maybe they're going to back up, but he gets caught by the Absconded Duck for Pretender, and that shifts the matchup dramatically. Now YSKM, that all-in is so deadly. Russ cannot push the lane whatsoever. If he pushes, he's pretty much just dead.
It's going to be a hard lane. Doesn't burn the TP at least, but with that flash down and Hollow starting topside, Clement, maybe an opportunity here as we'll watch how Frank Esports play towards his topside, because I remember you in that draft saying that you can play all the way to the solo lane. We've got a safe bot for Frank, and for CFO, it looks like with Gemini's pathing as well, he will be going to match that and send out a counterpunch as we get a pause. Rest is upset, all right? He wants his flashback back, Clement, so we're going to wait and see what the issue is in all seriousness.
All right, now I will say Rest has been in these positions before, and if you look at his stats, he is one of those top laners that if he falls behind, he does not mind running it down sometimes. Like, he will still be useful. He will still come back and get his farm and carry, but he does not mind trashing the entire laning phase if things don't start out well. So it's going to be interesting to see. This could be one of those instances where Rest kind of BMs himself.
We heard there was a bit of a mic issue, by the way, but we're getting back in. We're okay for now. Yeah, as you said, I mean, Rest is resilient. 5-0 on this Gnar, and even though CDBC are a winning team, that 5-0 record still has a bit of weight. For Frank Esports, YSKM is 1-0 on the pick. Deathless on the Fiora as well, Clement. And already, as we said, off to a good start with that flash being down, as Rest is just getting bullied here with a Grasp versus Fleet. YSKM has already gotten about 4 procs off at this level 1, level 2 mark.
Yeah, you got 2 procs, I believe, level 1 already. The flash is down, so the most important thing here for the top laner is Rest cannot allow the Fiora to push and bounce the wave. If the wave bounces back and YSKM is able to freeze, that just makes CFO's life so much harder. They're pretty much going to have to send Poppy up there. Rest is going to be starved of farm, so it's actually very important for Rest here to control his rage and keep on shoving the wave. He cannot have a big wave come in and then a bounce back going onto YSKM's side.
And we also talked about jungle intervention there. Like, Gemini was spotted on the ward. So at the very least, YSKM has so much information as to where Gemini is going, and knowing that Hollow is also up in this top side of the map. So top lane will continue to be the conversation point as we look towards these other lanes, and everything's even for now. It's still Frank Esports with a good early game, as once again sending out the Rover here, and that should actually get the spot on the Krug camp, which is being done by Gemini. So Clement, visions galore, easily done by Frank.
I love this utility bot side coming in, and to be honest, I feel like Ashe is a champion that has been underlooked in terms of just her teamfight power. I feel like she's really good in these situations where you're trying to chase someone down. And if someone goes for your backline, a lot of times Ashe can actually self-heal for herself. She's got that utility, a lot of slow to come down here. And she also just shores up your laning phase so well too. So great idea here with Frank. They kind of did a reverse draft for YSKM, where even though he didn't get the counter pick, the draft was still all about the top side.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've never seen a blind Fiora pick that early on. Oof. You know, just, again, the confidence, and you know how Frank Esports play, but I want to come back to CDBC Flying Oyster for a sec, as we continue to look at the fun up in the top lane. Sun, and talk a little bit about this Bard, Clement, because you said for Koala, bit of a pocket pick here. We know that Bard gets out of lanes quite early. I'm just kind of wondering how it's going to work out with these first couple of neutrals.
So I think the most important thing to look out for is where is the first tower dive going to... Oh, wow, that was a really beautiful by YSKM. Where's the first tower dive going to come down to? And I think there's a lot of options as we bot lane.
Well, I mean, I guess we're going to talk about Frankie. And Kerry's takes it, though. Kerry's takes the magical journey. Groudham's going to come through. No one's joining him. Even Hollow's like, nope, I'm not going anywhere near. As Ignite comes down, the shield is there too, but Hollow gets a stun over the wall, and Eminem is just going to poke him down. Kerry's lucky to be alive, as we do get an Ignite trade from the supports as well.
Yeah, defensive Ignite going down here from the side of Kerry's, just trying to ward everyone off. And Gemini will come in to sweep up the pieces right here. You know, going back to our original subject, I do think mid lane is probably the best direction to go in here. You can actually hotshot preemptively if you catch Gemini on the Krugs, which they do have a timer for. You know he's not going to be able to respond into anything mid lane. So you can Silas tower dive onto the Talia. She does have a lot of escapes, very easy to catch out, and just try to go there. I feel like the bot lane itself is going to be a little bit more difficult on the side going in for Frank Esports. Because I just feel like that lane's probably pure utility. I don't think the jungle is going to be there all that much for them.
I mean, the safety in both, right? Healing for the Bard here as we look at a level 6 Gnar, top side yet again. And safety here for the Tahm Kench. Like, for the 2v2 down the bottom lane has just been continuous trading, while mid has kind of been more of the same, and it has still been all about this top side. But I will say, Clement, Frank Esports weren't able to find a window to punish Rest on the flash timing, and we're kind of now waiting for the level 6 that's just been hit by Pretender by Mission. Weaver's Wall up and available, the Hijack as well to start influencing the map if he wants to respond. Now at the 6-minute mark as we're fast approaching, the Herald that's coming up in a minute 40, and even potential of Dragon for Frank and CFO.
Yeah, and we really have to see how this Weaver Wall is used. We talk about CFO as needing a little bit of a tempo edge here. I feel like a lot of their champions don't do so well into the late game. Bard, Talia, I would both say that they're weaker in terms of the scaling compared to their counterparts. So for CFO, I think their best idea is probably to get something done into the bottom side. Again, we talked about their tower diving combo. If you can move the Talia out of lane somehow, she already has a Weaver's Wall, and then you can follow up with the Poppy for a guaranteed stun onto that self-created wall, and you also have the Temper Fate right there. So that's the big combo waiting to happen. I expected to go down to bot lane for CFO, but we do have to look for timings right here.
I just can't get my eyes off the top lane though for the time being. CFO aren't even pivoting towards bot. It seems like their attention being drawn by Rest getting heavily traded against. A 10 CS lead here for YSKM as the wave is not the right spot to get that ulti into the turret, so Rest now down with the Mega Gnar. Good dodging from YSKM as everyone's coming up the whole party with Mission's Weaver's Wall that will be available, but he's already out, and so for YSKM, he's going to be able to avoid that one, Clement. And remember, quick little interaction tidbit. You press W on the Weaver's Wall, and you can actually stop it in places of the aura. So for Mission, always just worry about where he's placing it to.
Absolutely. That crowd control portion does count. Riposte will help you with that one. Big win for, I would say, Frank Esports with a decent win here. YSKM able to get out of the game squad coming in. Pretender keeping very close to the lane. And he's going for Mission.
Yeah, I mean, Mission is now by himself because Jungler not there. Pretender's taking a huge chunk with the Kingslayer and the arrow helping out, but as Chainlash comes through, the Ignite down gets him low. Shun ults, but it's blocked by Carries. A great support play here as Frank Esports get the Dragon, while CFO can't get the exit kill.
Yeah, very aggressive play there from Shun, and to be honest, even though Carries did block it, he didn't really move. He just walked on the Toad's path there, still got the job done, so kudos to him.
I mean, look, he was still a brick wall. You know, Carries did the right thing, so whether it was Shun's fault or not, still at the very least, a good support player. But Bait, speaking of which, Koala down position, but Shun doesn't have the ulti. As a flash away from the chime sets up, for Frank Esports, they lose their Ashes flash, which means no summoners on this 80 carry, so that'll be a beneficial trait for CFO.
Yeah, a small win right there. Koala just spotted Carries, hasn't hit level 6 just then, doesn't have the Devour, goes right in and burns the flash, so a good find on his part. And on the other hand, Frank Esports able to just get out of that Dragon collapse quite safely. So I think the big thing here, we're looking at the Herald fight next, and we have to take account of most of the flashes here. What we have just witnessed is, I honestly just felt like that was a mistake from Shun to burn his flash in that manner, trying to get a kill onto the Pretender. Really not worth it when you look at the dive potential here from Frank Esports, and everybody is heading towards that top side right now. Frank Esports currently does enjoy a big lead in terms of vision, and he already have the Tom Kench over.
And remember, even though it's not going to be the Imperial Mandate because it's an 80 carry Ash, you still have yourself Lucidity first. We've got the Caulfield's Warhammer, so you are getting that ability haste. So Clement, we have an Ash arrow off of cooldown, and that's only going to be about 50 seconds per usage as well. As supports are just battling it out. Ignore this for the time being as they slap each other in the face. As you said, that Herald is going to be a priority. Vision for both teams, but Hollow is the one who has a top laner winning out in the matchup for now, so should influence it quite a bit.
Yeah, and a couple big things to note here. Carry's still not level 6, so missing an ultimate when it does come to that fight. And CFO are starting to pull people across the map right here, going back and forth with the Talia and with the Bard trying to catch someone out. This is such a fun way to play.
Huge mobility. I didn't even think about it. Like, yeah, the magical journey, you can weave his wall down and you can reposition again because of Bard, Clement. Like, double the tool, and the usage here is the flash into the wall, caught out mid-transition. Hollow flashes, not burning the ulti himself. The enchant across the arrows there, but Pretender's not willing to commit on in. So, a couple of things used there as Frank Esports once again get punished.
Yeah, kind of a weird timing right there. We actually saw Mission without the seismic shove ready, and Gemini spurned a flash for that one. So again, I'm feeling like the execution here is a little bit jittery coming in decided for CFO. I feel like they're under pressure because they know that they have to find some sort of an early game play, and they haven't really caught anything yet.
I mean, as you said, Frank Esports are normally the ones that come out of the gates rolling, right? Like, this is such a big early game team. But you talked about how this team could move into the late game, and there's a good opportunity here for Rest, who is actually getting some good trading back himself. But YSCam is sitting a bit mannerless, a bit low on the HP bar. So with that, Gemini moves on in, and that window, thanks to Rest, is going to give him priority over the Herald that's been sitting here for quite a while.
Yeah, great trade coming in from Rest. He finds a moment where the minion wave is in the exact position for him to go in onto YSCam. YSCam couldn't really trade back into the big minion wave.
Nice.
And CFO are just picking up everything right here. They could just drop the Herald if they so choose to.
4 members. You're going to be trading off bottom lane plates, but for now, look at the rest of the response from Frank Esports. Ain't much of one, as you said. With that magical journey over the wall, they get closer towards the Herald, getting first turret blood, and down it goes. Spread amongst 4 different people. Well, as Rest FAK's in the nick of time. Going to get another charge here as well, Clement, as Frank Esports have only kitted YSCam to his top side to try and defend for now. Gravitum's here. They want to take him, but in the 1v3, manages to parry off some of the attack as Herald goes down on TP now from Frank Esports as well. There's a bit of turret damage. First blood, YSCam just flashes as Koala with a massive mistake.
I don't think Koala paid attention to the ignite. He was still taking tower shots in the back, and what an easy pickup from YSKM. So overall, the trade definitely much more favorable for CFO. They get the Herald, they get the first tower, and they only trade back 1 plate for it. So that was a huge win for CFO in the end, but a bit of a mishap here from Koala. We're going to watch again how many tower shots he takes right here. That's going to be 1 off the front of it. The ignite had already gone down, and it looks like he actually had the meeps going towards the Fiora there. Very unfortunate.
Oh, and that first kill, as you said, better trade for CFO, but remember Frank Esports also the one with Dragon stacking, Clement. And because you mentioned so much about how this game could progress in their favor, with a Fiora having priority and having the first kill of the game, still feels like for Frank Esports, they're not going to be too miffed as the arrow comes through onto Mission, who steps forward and averts danger.
Beautiful sidestep right there. I'm not even sure if that was intentional or not, but great by him to just walk a little bit forward into the danger range of Silas and then just back out. So, you know, if we look at the game holistically right now, I would say CFO do have a small advantage because of that tower. They can now roam members across the map a lot easier, and especially dangerous is going to be Koala. Again, remember, this comp is all about tower diving. If you have that tempered fate, you can catch people out so easily.
Like this, but Heartbreaker going to stop that. Weaver's Wall used as well. Double the ultimates. And they're still going for top lane. That's right, Clement. 4 members actually committing up here. But with all those ultis down, I mean, for CFO, they're getting collapsed upon, and Pretender still has his. The ulti gets out the mid lane. Styles is carrying,
turning it around.
The Gemini into the wall, saving the play. The magical journey as well. Hollow there, but the encounter is Chris Arrow. Comes in so clutch as Shun. It's so low. Pretender with the ulti now stolen away. Misses it though as Gemini's fighting out nicely, but not well enough. One little reset here as Pretender flashes the Abscond of Duck, and Koala. It's a good chime, but he won't escape either. CFO overcommitting, and Frank Esports there to punish again.
I gotta hand it to the support right there. That was a hero flash under pressure coming in from Karis. He took all the rotation, like the first round of damage, all went onto the Toad, and then he manages to flash across the wall. Frank Esports, you know, they have fresh members coming in, and CFO do not turn around and swap over their aggression. They keep on going. They get punished for it. Again, critically, Shun has burned all of his cooldowns. Let's watch this. So the key thing here is basically CFO and their target selection. They got the tower, they got the knockback coming in from Gemini. Really cool play, but they're not able to finish their targets. They spend all of their cooldowns going for the Toad, and he just gets across the wall just safe.
Eminem's arrow hitting Shun as well, but the damage has been halted. And for Frank Esports, the rest of the cleanup was super easy once Hollow started getting his reset. So Frank still that bloodthirsty team that we know. CFO, that play before, and even that turret take to the inner Clement, that gold might be in their favor, but the 3 kills now, double dragon stacking. Should also cleansing there as we come back to live. Clement, you know, CFO are going to have to start looking at contesting some of these dragons, and with how this game's going with the sideliners, with the comfortable position Frank Esports are now in, I want to talk to you a little bit about progressing into this mid-game and how CFO can speed things up despite the objective disadvantage.
Yeah, I think the game has changed to the point right now where I don't think Gemini should be the one starting engages anymore. He needs to stay back and actually just bump out Holo or bump out Pretender in some of these fights. These two members, they got 2 kills and the 2 assists. They're already at the point where if they get on Aphelios, Aphelios is just dead. Like, there's nothing he can really do about it. So I feel Gemini needs to play a little bit more defensive, and you need to see a little bit more action coming in from the Talia instead.
Yeah, the Weaver's Wall have been here and there from Mission, and speaking of which, Magical Journey is going to set this one up. Tempered Fate just dodged away. Thanks so much, YSKM. Playing so tricky with the fingers, and this is kind of what we expect out of the new top laner. Demanding attention here, Clement. 3 members now, almost 4, coming down to deal with him, but he's got Grand Challenge. He's got Flash almost available against the wall. Won't be able to stop this one into the air. YSKM avoiding it for now. Grand Challenge. Rest flashing away under turret. He won't take the aggro as Koala now as well.
Goes back in.
He lives on. Mini the Shy indeed.
Oh boy, going for this Fiora is incredibly dangerous right here. They're not able to burst her through the riposte, and in the meantime, Frank Esports now working on the mid lane.
Although you wanted to see it as Seismic Shove's dodged away from, zones off as YSKM. He just got so low, but as he comes down to the bottom lane, CFO haven't backed off. He flashes it into rest under turret. Almost. One more hit would have done it. As CFO committed the TP as well. 4 members sit in front of this turret, and that is going to cost Frank Esports big, no matter how flashy.
Yeah, you do have alternating vitals right there, so Rest played it super calm and collected there. Turns around, knows when he has to keep on running to keep the tower aggro to do the job right there. And if we look at the trade overall, I actually feel like it was okay for Frank Esports though. Even though CFO do get the flashy kill on the bottom side, we have to remember Frank Esports just took a Herald, they just took top lane tower, and all of that gold was going on to Pretender.
Who has had more of a quiet game, but his Silas against J-Team absolutely pummeled in the mid to late game. Frank Esports, if you're just tuning in, have come off a win against, you know, one of the top teams in the league. And although right now it's not 100%, depending on if Jewish team win later, this win, if they combine it against CFO, means that they could be locked in for playoffs today here as Eminem is caught out, but the Tempered Fate is used while they're not nearby. The arrow in return. Swallow takes a huge chunk as Rest comes in, but he doesn't have a Mega Nava. And Pretender, this is what we talked about with Silas, Clement. He can use it anytime he wants. The threat there from Frank Esports is a minute until Dragon. They now have the setup.
So that was CFO trying to catch out people. They had a 5-man versus a 4-man, but I think it was actually pretty scuffed from the side of CFO. They get the Tempered Fate, but it's across a wall onto an Ashe that's actually just building support. So I don't think they could have gone on to that one. And Frank Esports are feeling very confident about this play afterwards. They got a lot of farm time on the top side, and they know that the engage is not there, so they're just able to walk in and take this tower.
This is a new one for me though, Clement. You're right, there is a Fiendish Codex on an 80 carry Ashe. So, yeah, I guess why not for Eminem? He's like, I know what my role is this game, send out the arrows willy-nilly. As the arrows have been hitting, to be fair, I think his Ashe has been on point.
Absolutely, he knows his role. It's just a hawk shot, people. It's just to make those fighters close in onto their targets. But Rest has been incredibly fast.
I mean, no one else is here. There's going to be the Grand Challenge issued. Rest got to play with the vitals nicely here, but he's now exposed forward. One more. He's going to go to Meganar in time.
Tower shot?
In time. Yes, it is. Rest plays with it, dances in his face. YSKM might be the newbie, the hot shot, but Rest never gives in as Frank Esports without their top lane, and now the Tempered Fate going to get the support. CFO in a great position, but Pretender's ulti against the wall is cleansed out, and immediately Kerry saving the day, but a good W from the Talia. Well, shouldn't kite it back, Koala getting low as well. Polo stepping up to the plate, and just need the reset here. Dragons live, no one dies in this 4v5, or excuse me, 4v4, but it gets close.
Yeah, it definitely does. And right now, Frank Esports will consider that a win. They have a lot more natural sustain on their top position, and they have the vision advantage. So after that skirmish, CFO are the ones that need to back out here. I will say, though, the top solo was just so cool. I hope we get to see it again. This is the reason why I felt like CFO are the hardest matchup for Frank Esports. YSKM has not been able to get a lead over Rest. Rest comes in, he gets the double jump. It looks pretty bad for a moment, and he goes below 100 HP. But you know what? He baits out the W, gets him to go behind, and then shoves him into tower. That was such a smart move going into the play. He calculated exactly what YSKM was going to do.
As you said, this is why Rest is, one of the best solo laners in the league. Why Rest has got so much respect. And when PCS gets 2 seeds, I know a lot of people out there are expecting, well, it's probably going to be PSG for one of them. CDBC and Flying Oyster are looking like the best PCS team at the moment in this regular season. And I can't say with more confidence that right now, with this form, despite the early game being countered well by Frank Esports, they are in control in this game, Clement, and we are once again seeing CFO slowly whittle out advantages as we move solidly into the mid-game.
Yeah, it's a super interesting game. Actually, CFO and their main engage.
Seismic shove. Aries going to get knocked back. Grabbing him as well. He can't move. Nice pick from CFO as Hollow tries to react, but there's 4 members here with Nar off to the wing. Pretender can't respond, and hey, if you wanted an early game to really build up, CFO have heard you loud and clear.
What an interesting way to play from Koala. He's actually just throwing out these Temper Fates whenever he has the chance and seeing if he can get a lucky pick here and there. I feel like this is actually a pretty smart way to play against Frank Esports that is clearly still trying to play more of a 1-3-1 game. You can see in these couple of fights, they're the ones sort of playing more defensive around the mid lane and waiting until their solo lanes to come in. And Koala has just been relentless. He just throws out the Temper Fate whenever the cooldown is off and see if he can get a pick off. There's really no cost because the enemy aren't in position to actually fight back if you're grouped.
I feel like both supports have been playing really well, this game. Some good Bard ultis, some good Tahm Kench ultis as well. I want to point out while we're talking about the bottom lane, second item now built here for M&M. Leandri's picked up as well, Clement, so going to have a lot of value against people like Gemini, Rest, and, well, hell, even Koala with the health he's building. So feels like right now, M&M, again, knows his role, going to get himself a bit of CDR, and as well, a huge mana pool that's never going to deplete.
Yeah, this is pretty much the I'm going to stay as far away as possible, and all you're going to see from me is just the W sort of build. He's not even looking for the auto attacks with this one. He's just trying to stay back, W as much as possible, and keep everyone in place for Silas and YSKM to chase people down. Now we are getting slightly later into the game. I feel like we're coming close to the point where maybe YSKM can start to get a little bit out of Rest here. He does have the big sustain item in line. That one's huge. You have the Hydra, or the Ravenous Hydra right here. That will give a lot of cooldown.
Oh, 2-man Tempered Fate. Now the arrow comes through at the right time, means Gemini can't get in, but Kerry's still against the wall. Seismic shove back while one angle is Pretender, the other a TP. Follow tries to flash on him, but as YSKM comes through, that grand challenge is going to be everything. He dodges the Poppy ult. This Fiora just needs to reset into the back line. He doesn't get it. Mission survives, so does Shun. Frank Esports with a trade onto Koala in the meantime, but Rest is trying to come in to make that Mega Gnar play. Frank Esports off on the wing, still kiting back. It's a 1-for-1, but it's that big top laner for only a support.
Oh, that was such a tense moment right there. Once again, CFO go in because they know that Fiora is on the other side of the map, but Gemini able to outplay the waiting game. Breaker still coming in though.
Oh, Rest with a 2-man ulti just deletes, so does the Seismic shove. 1 blow up, 2 carries, and Frank Esports are dismissed. Hollow with his flash away admits defeat as CFO move to a 5k gold lead and back to this Baron, which is gonna make the game so hard for Frank.
Russ is just making everything look so damn easy right here. Frank Esports, they walk down the ramp and instantly Rest goes in for the 2-man shove. They keep, I believe that was full 5 Barons on their team, all alive at that point. Yeah, all 5 Barons. So we're going to watch this again. The same concept here. They know it's a 4-1 comp, so CFO goes super aggressive in. And I think the most critical part of this play is Gemini actually holding on to his Keeper's Verdict past the point where the riposte comes out. That was really dicey because if the riposte was well timed, that was going to be a 3-man stun. Gemini actually waits until the riposte is over, and then as you see YSCam goes in, doesn't get the crowd control, doesn't get the stun down. Of course, Koala overplays his hand just a little bit right there, but doesn't matter as Rest cleans up in the end.
And as we come back, I mean, CFO now in the nick of time, as Arrow is going to come through, but the AoE is not enough. Deny that Dragon Soul. So for CFO, I mean, Frank Esports were the ones heading that up, but the game will continue going on. And it is only a Cloud Soul here, Clement, so it feels like right now for Frank, there's not much that's holding them into a comfortable position. As I know you talked about the late game, but we are in such a big power trough with Rest having 3 items now, with even Mission, who has been bursting out people so close to getting the Void Staff himself.
The problem right now with Frank Esports is they barely have people that can survive. Let's see if Rest can get away, though.
Well, he's not taking much damage. Those 3 items, the Heartbreaker's out defensively. Pretender steals the Nara ulti, but Rest is an absolute unit. It was YSCam versus Rest in the highlight matchup, and, you know, Rest, even in the match that he took, that didn't look advantageous, has just been looking so good this game. He draws everyone down bot, Clement Chu, and CFO are using their utility towards mid.
Yeah, they have found a potential catcher.
Oh no, Keeper's Verdict is not going to come through. At the very least, Terry saves his 80 carry. The arrow comes in, but is a whiff. The CFO just back off slightly, ready to fight another day.
We have to see Pretender if he can find an engage right here. They have to go in on one of these lanes.
Everfrost doesn't connect though. Rest still looking for that hop as he's about to go into the Mega now. The Grand Challenge comes in, but it won't be enough healing because Rest can deny it. The Poppy Mega Hammer away. Gemini in the nick of time. CDBC flying oyster. We said it before. Right now, the PCS's best team. I hell think it's CFO for sure.
9,000 gold lead for CFO, and Rest somehow is able to kite back 3 members right there. Keep himself alive. Great use of the Randuins, and that's just going to close out the game. The solo laners that we were so hyped about for Frank Esports are not here anymore.
Rest and Mission came up clutch, especially that top lane now. Gemini as well. What's new here for CDBC Flying Oyster? Their win streak looking to extend here is the final base defense, but attempted base of 3-man as Gemini flashes, gets a stun into the wall. The Heartbreaker out for Hollow, but he's getting burnt down. The next is now exposed. They don't need the kills. They just need the win. They'll move to 10 wins right under PSG and keep that 6-win streak going.
I gotta say, this game was a perfect showcase of why Rest is still on top of the league in terms of top laners. His trading timings and his survivability were just so incredibly good. I thought when he lost the Flash and when Poppy's entire jungle route was spotted out, that Rest was going to have a terrible game. There was all the ingredients there for a wave bounce back into a constant gank scenario, but he outplayed that. He was able to shove the wave out a little bit, keep it in front of his tower where he was able to farm safely, and then the big play came at Herald, where he found a big trade with a wave pushing in. YSCam could not trade back in that situation, and then they chain it into a Herald slam onto the top lane, and then another tower into the bot side. Beautiful play from Rest.
Even though YSCam got that trade kill right, that first blood with Koala overstepping, we're like, okay, it's close. There's triple dragon sacking for Frank Esports. You know what's even bigger, Clement? That 1v1 solo kill in the top side with the inner turret that YSCam was looking for, where Rest ults him back into the turret. I mean, that felt like that made all the difference in the world, and Rest on this Gnar doing what I feel like a lot of Gnars couldn't do against the Fiora, which is win out in the side lanes when, you know, YSCam was in such a good position.
He definitely was, and this is a matchup where you do expect the Fiora to actually come out ahead sometimes later in the game. You know, Fiora has a lot more innate sustain compared to the Gnar, and her riposte, even if it doesn't block out a crowd control, you slow the Gnar attack speed by 50%. And Gnar is basically reliant on those hyper stacks to deal damage. So it's a matchup that does favor Fiora in the late game. Rest just played it so damn well. I feel like the bait into the tower, the idea to like use the wall up and then save the ultimate where it's an instant crowd control was so incredibly smart. He read YSCam like a book, punished the youngster, and just showed why he's still the king of top lane.
And we've got, another reason to believe in CWC Flying Oyster, further than the reasons have already been giving us. 6-win streak here, Clement. They're moved up to 10 wins. They are in line with PSG Talon. All that separates them is that one loss extra that they've received. But the CWC Flying Oyster mission's been great as well. Like, that Talia was so clean. I'm not sure if it was a killless game in the end, but holding up the assists, Gemini on Poppy too. That combination works so well, and that's what we know about, Flying Oyster, is that they are this team with the strongest solo laners, or if not at least top 2 in the league. And Gemini has been facilitating it so well.
I think it was pretty interesting in the mid game where we actually didn't see much of their the 4-man gang squad actually succeed. A lot of times FAK Esports were actually able to just walk away from it. But the thing that kind of surprised me is how much of a lead that the Gnar was just able to get. Rest was continuously snowballing. He was never caught on a side lane. He just did not die to the pincer moves that Frank threw onto him. And over time, instead of CFO actually going for these sort of like 4-man catches and bursting someone out, they actually played toward Gnar's lane because he was so far ahead, and they were just able to win through that. So in my view, there were still a lot of things for CFO's composition that did not work out as intended. I don't think they got a successful tower dive, and I felt like most of their mid-game tries with the Talia and Poppy were not actually that successful.
True.
But in Rest, they trust, and Rest carried them to the finish line.
And Koala too, right? I mean, I think the Tempered Fate, once it did start get rolling, was really clean. As we look at MVP, and what can you expect? Rest here, 6 out of something kill. I was going to say it's probably like 10 kills. 8 kills for CWC Flying Oyster by the end as well. So Rest a big part of it. And once again showing us why this Gnar, his most pick, is still undefeated. 6-0 for a reason.
Oh boy, I just don't know who can stand up to Rest. We have seen Leaky take last week's MVP. We have seen YSKM just stand atop of the solo kill boards with 13 solo kills on his way. But, I think at the end of the day, I still have to say Rest is our most treasured asset in the top lane. His experience and his coordination on when to push with the team is still par none.
You got to hand it to CWC Flying Oyster with those solo lanes in the mix. Like, right now, putting a real big case over FAK Esports, who we knew were one of the bloodiest teams in the league. However, coming up next, we got more studying to do at the very least. We're going to see if Impunity can kind of break some of their curses, or if Jewish Team are ready to get another win of their own. Right after this break, PCS continues.